Hey everybody, Sean O'Connor here for Macabre Daily and Paper Cuts, the horror literature column that I run, and I've got none other than Robb Olson, who I was frantic to get on, and I was just apologizing to him because my scheduling is my ninja scheduling skills are not what they used to be. It's great to see you, Rob.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you asking me to join you for this. It's very flattering, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Well, I don't even know if I mentioned it in our email communications, Rob. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone who's listening and watching, Rob has one of the best podcasts out there. It's the Arc Party, and I approached Matt Orozco, the owner and editor in chief of Macabre Daily, and I said, "Hey, look, I've got an idea of an offshoot for Paper Cuts. I'd really like to start to reach out to podcasts that I feel are doing just an incredible job amplifying authors, their works, their voices, and really giving them a platform. Because what I learned, and Rob, I'll ask you if you learned this, as you were building the podcast up and talking to all these authors, I learned that they really have the burden of promotion squarely on their shoulders. And I was kind of put back on my heels when I found out about that because, being a complete knucklehead, I felt, "Oh, no, it's like, the publisher, gives them sends a limousine and a private jet and, sets everything up for them, and it's all on the publisher's dime." And boy, oh boy, that is not the case. And you, sir, are one of the absolute best landing places for these authors. Your
Thanks.
your style, your ability to get really meaningful and fun conversation out of authors. Um, I put you in a class with, I reached out to Anna Dupree of Anna Rose Reads. I've spoken with Neil McRobert of Talking Scared. There's you. I've got Scotty Miller of Horror from the High Desert. I interviewed Scotty just a while back. There are lots of really good horror literature and horror centric podcasts out there. But I feel that the ones I just mentioned, and you especially, are right there at the top. And yeah, you really get some great stuff from these authors.
Um, well, I guess if you want to go, do you want to go into like how I got to where I'm at? Like, is that
Before we get to
yeah?
that, I actually want to know if horror was always on your radar or if it was something you came into later on in life.
Oh, definitely. This is a later in life situation. So when I was young, I was like the kid who, if I was at a birthday party and they were watching a horror movie, I was sitting in the kitchen. Um, because I couldn't make myself go be scared. And I didn't read Stephen King growing up. Like I've probably read 4 or 5 Stephen King novels ever. So it was definitely not in my DNA until like I became much more rabid of a reader, and as you know, like horror books would start to filter in a little bit here and there. And as I picked up horror, those are the ones that kind of stuck more. And as I read more, so it was like a kind of like a slow growth as opposed to like I can't name one specific moment where all of a sudden I was like, I love horror. It was like a slow accumulation over time.
But I know that you have to be a voracious reader. You probably read, like most readers, you probably read a couple of different genres, right?
Yeah.
What were you gravitating toward initially? And I'm so curious, what was the tipping point that brought you into horror?
So traditionally, so I for podcast purposes, I've been reading for podcasts since like 2011, and back then it was more literary fiction and crime. Crime was actually having a moment in like the early 2010s and stuff, so there was a lot of momentum there, and I knew a lot of people who were writing in crime, so there was a lot of that. And then, so even like Paul Tremblay was writing detective novels in like
Yeah.
the early 2010s, and so um, it was just again over time. I think horror was starting to build up as well, And there was kind of a tipping point in like 2018, 2017, 2018, where horror took off. And
Yeah.
so these relationships and everything that I've been building over these like probably 7 years of talking about books, now I had already known all these horror people and they were like, you need to read this and you need to read this. And so it gained momentum that way. But I was reading a lot of crime and like regular literary fiction and like little like drips and drops of horror mixed in.
Nice. All right, we're gonna have to peel off into crime for a hot second because that's what I, I was kind of a monster kid and a horror kid growing up, but it's kind of strange because I gravitated toward a lot of noir crime fiction. I loved Elmore Leonard and yeah, James Elroy, and Nick Pelicanos, and I really, really loved that, and that kind of opened up a whole, an entry point into horror because I would read articles with these authors, and every now and then they'd kind of point you in a direction of, oh, you know what, you got to check out Joe Lansdale, and then that would
Oh yeah.
bring me into his horror, and then from
Yep.
Joe Lansdale he would recommend all different sorts of authors, and it's just like it mushrooms everywhere.
Sure.
Was that similar?
Yeah, but for me it was more contemporary crime, not like the more classic folks like that. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I've definitely read Elmore Leonard and looking at some Lawrence Block I have on the shelf and stuff like that. But so in the early when I was first starting podcasting specifically, I don't know if you've heard of Scott Phillips. He wrote
Yes. Yep.
The Ice Harvest, and he's a contemporary crime author. And his friend Jedediah Ayers um, did a lot of kind of I don't know if you want to say Southern Gothic, but like really dirty, like down and dirty, like Southern kind of crime writing. And then everybody that they knew, um, I was getting introduced to and reading. And so like Rob Hart is a friend of mine because he's like he was doing Lit Reactor, the website, and I met him through that. But like I've got every book he's written on my shelf right next to me because I knew him and then I read him and I loved what I read. And yeah, so like a lot of the contemporary um Megan Abbott, huge fan of Megan Abbott. So a lot of the more contemporary names are what I was reading, and then I would dip back into some of the more classic folks as well.
I mean, those are killers. Everyone that you mentioned right there. Oh my goodness. I got obsessed, and actually fairly still obsessed with a lot of Southern Gothic, like Ron Rash, Tom Franklin, and those lean heavily into crime as well, especially
Mhm.
Tom Franklin. And it's just look, people are listening to us right now, and they're like, "Hey, I thought you guys were going to talk about
Yeah.
horror," but
Yeah.
this is to
William
say that.
Gay. William Gay would be another name.
Oh, are you kidding me? Oh, you see, this is why I couldn't wait to have you on. I absolutely couldn't wait to have you on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of dine out on a couple of these novels, and it like I said, it opens up a gateway to a whole different discovery, and that's the best thing about reading. That the adventure of it, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've talked to so many authors lately, horror authors that are getting ready to dabble into like dark fantasy
Hmm. Yeah.
because they're like, you know what? It feels organic. I've done this. I want to kind of get out of the box that I've happily created for myself and try something new. And I think that's fantastic.
Hmm.
Absolutely
Oh
fantastic.
yeah, and reading diversely. That's not even really reading diversely, but like reading. If you only read horror, you're probably missing. And even if you only read horror, you're probably reading crime and you're probably reading dark fantasy anyway, because like
Yeah.
those things exist in here. Like if you read Richard Kadrey, you're reading some, more detective-y kind of stuff sometimes. Yeah. So like, and like you mentioned, Joe Lansdale, that guy writes anything. So
Anything. Yeah, and
it
everything.
all blends together in a way over time. Like, what was the example? Megan Abbott's book Beware the Woman, which came out just a couple of years ago, is about a woman who like basically is held hostage, a pregnant woman who's kind of held hostage by her husband's like father in this weird like upstate New York thing, and it's like absolutely horror, but like it's shelved in mystery thriller, but it's
Right?
horror. So like horror kind of to quote the great Bob Pastorella, it's all horror. So
It
yeah.
is. It really is. Okay, so that brings us to how in the wide world of sports did this podcast come about? Like what was the epiphany?
So I have to give you a little bit of a history lesson. Because I've been doing the Arc Party as a podcast since the beginning of 2023, so it's newer. I think I've got about 80 episodes. Prior to that, I did a podcast for 10 years called Booked, and that was primarily book reviews, but then like author interviews as well.
Okay.
So I've basically been podcasting about books since before anybody knew what podcasts were. So it's been
Nice.
in my DNA for a long time. Like podcasting platforms didn't exist. Like Spotify didn't do like it was a whole different world back then. And then that podcast ended in 2021, and I was like, something's missing. But I didn't want to do book reviews. I kind of got out of the idea of saying this is how good this book is. But I always loved talking to the authors, and so my idea was I just want to do what I can to promote books before they come out. So the whole idea of this podcast is pre-publication promotion of authors' books. You give me the book, I read it, we talk about it, and then I encourage people to pre-order, have their libraries order it, stuff like that. And because really that was, if you distill down the 10 years of podcasting I had done before, my favorite parts were when I could tell people how great of an experience they were about to have with a book.
Yeah.
And so that's why the whole focus for me is I read this, I want people to hear about it.
And that is what it's all about. And please forgive me because I am stealing shamelessly from you with the paper cuts column from Macabre Daily. It's I just want to have, as small as the megaphone is, I just wanna have a megaphone to amplify incredible works by people who really just put their heart and soul into what they do.
Yeah.
And, um, Rob, I'll ask you, it's I've only interviewed about probably about 30 to 40 authors at this point in time. I know that you have interviewed scores. But I'm finding out again, it's the I'm so naive, you know, living this fantasy world that I create for these authors in my head, that most of them have a regular career.
Yeah.
They do this as a passion, and they really kind of burn the candle at both ends to do this. And I, I'm always floored by it when I'm talking to an author that the shelves of the local bookstore are covered in their work, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I work for an advertising agency, and I write at
Yeah.
night, I write in the morning, I write on the weekends." And I'm like, "Are what the heck is going on here? We need to pay our teachers more, and then right second in line is the authors. We need to pay our authors more."
Oh
You
yeah.
know?
Uh-huh.
It's just did you have the same experience where you're like, "Well, you obviously do this full time for a living," and they're like, "Absolutely not. I work at the, I don't know, canning factory," you know?
It's yeah, I've had these moments where um so that's an interesting thing for me to answer because like I was interviewing Paul Tremblay before Head Full of Ghosts. So I knew Paul when it made sense for him to have a day job. Um
Yeah.
so watching that change and watching him get the notoriety he has and then seeing that he's still doing the teaching and everything, that that's interesting to see. So I feel like I knew a lot of people when I knew a lot of people who were like, I'm starting out, and so like this is something I hope one day gets somewhere. Um, but I'd say that in addition to what you're saying, which is like authors typically don't write full time. Like most authors don't. Like I know there's a handful that I know that do, and that's great, and I'm very happy for them. But the majority don't. And the other thing is just how fickle publishing is in general. Like I know people who were big five, book a year, um, just really reliably published by a big five for a long time, and then the winds change or there's a
Yeah.
new president at the company or something, and suddenly they don't get contracts anymore, and now they're self-publishing. And so, um, in addition to the fact that we probably don't pay them what they deserve,
What they're
um,
worth. Yeah.
the the scarier part of it is like there is no certainty that like that next contract is coming. So, like that's the thing that really scares me is like the the push to stay relevant.
Yeah.
Um, it's not the meritocracy that it should be. Like good writing doesn't always get rewarded. And I know I'm sounding like a real bummer, but like
No,
that
but
to me
it's the
is like,
truth.
yeah, that's the scarier reality is like, you know, Paul Tremblay, if, and I'm talking about Paul a lot, but just because everybody knows who he is, there was a moment between his detective books and when Head Full of Ghosts got picked up where that could have been it for him. And then we never would have gotten all those other books if someone didn't believe in him and go to bat for him. So that's the thing I think is like probably maybe keeping people up at night more than like their day jobs is like, will I get another contract? Will I get optioned? Those
Yeah.
types of things.
Will I be able to do this as hopefully transition into a full-time career?
Yeah.
And it's a enormous question mark. No matter how, and to your point, no matter how big a book lands at any given time, the season passes and something else
Yeah.
fills that gap that's eventually created. And maybe what fills that gap isn't necessarily your writing style. And it changes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we're two monumental bummers right now talking about
No.
how writing is essentially gladiator school.
Well, yeah, we'll have to switch gears and talk positive stuff at some point. Yeah, for sure.
We're going to start right now. You know what, Rob? No more bummer. We're going to start right now because, look, everyone, the writers that we're talking about, and the writers that the authors that Rob has had on, and that I've been lucky enough to interview, they have stellar careers, solid careers. Like I said, they're doing this for the passion of it, and they're so good at what they do. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness. You just had on not that long ago. I loved your interview with Chris Panettiere, and I
Hmm. Yeah.
think, I mean, I've absolutely listened to two Arc Party episodes with Chris. Has he been on more than? Do I need to go back a little further?
No, so I had him on for Death on the Swayback at the beginning of the year. That was my first time talking to him, and then I had him on for his book Shit Show, and then just yesterday released my Rapture Publishing episode where it's him and Mitch Hull from Rapture Publishing, and we're talking about the chapbooks that he makes, but then also Daytide, which you can see on my shelf.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I
You
know.
son of a bitch. I'm so jealous. And there's Anna Dupree posting her copy, and I'm gonna yell at Chris. I'm gonna email him tonight. Like,
Yeah,
Where's my goddamn copy?" But
yeah,
you come across someone like Chris, and look, I know that you have interviewed so many stellar superstars. I mean, Clay and Sadie Hartman, Chris. I was going through the litany of guests that you had, and of course, now I can only name those three.
right.
But my point being is that you're giving them ample space to talk about what they love, and your style. And this is where I'll get into some questions. Your style is it's your conversational flow is unmatched. I love that. I feel like I'm just at a diner with some
Mhm.
friends, and we're eating a nice slice of pie, and we're talking about the things we love. It's just kind of effortless.
Yeah.
And I want to know, Rob, what is the preparation that goes into creating that kind of atmosphere?
So, I mean, I credit the fact that I've been reading books for um, review for so long, and then also for to prepare for discussion. So I read books differently than I did before I was podcasting. I read books to try and understand as deeply as possible what's going on. And so, like, honestly, that's the biggest part. Is like, if I'm going to talk to you about your book, I'm not just going to read it. I'm reading every word. I'm thinking about what did they mean. I'm thinking about the themes that tie into it. And like, I go into that conversation being fully aware that I could be totally wrong about something. But it's so gratifying when I say, a great example. I talked to Cassandra Cobb about their book, The Salt Grows Heavy, and I said, there's a big love situation in this story, but it doesn't feel like romantic love. It just feels like these people love each other, like they're really there for each other. And their response was like, that's exactly right. And when I get those things right, where it's like the subtleties of the relationship,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's rewarding because like it means that I really, really, as long as you really get the thing you're talking about, like you really understand it, um, I think that's what makes my conversations go so well is that I'm trying to step back and say, what were they trying to do? Um, and then I also try and think, what did this make me feel? Like, where did this take me? And use those as like the conversation pieces. I was talking to Josh Malerman once about his book Mallory, and so the sequel to Bird Box, and he had said, I he said something about how he was thinking about a part of the book where he was going to have Mallory see the things and go crazy. And he's like, yeah, and I decided I wasn't going to make her go crazy. And I was like, Josh, what are you talking about? Like, you spent 2 books
Yeah.
making her so obsessed with not seeing the things. I'm like, they made her crazy, just not in the way that they made everybody else crazy. Like, you did it. Like, that was the
Yeah.
whole thing. And he's like, oh, yeah, I guess I didn't think about that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Tunnel
that
vision.
just having a connection with like the material you're talking about and caring about it and looking at what does it do for me or what does it bring up in me, that's when I've had the most successful conversations. But the only problem is sometimes I think I'm like too serious, and I need to like lighten up sometimes because I get really deep into things. So I don't know, like, but I've never heard someone say you need to be more jokey. So maybe I'm
No,
not.
and you're not gonna hear that from me. Don't change a thing. It's perfect what you're doing. Definitely don't change a thing. I love that you're pointing out when you hit those moments and it's like validation. You're like, okay, yeah, I got it. I nailed it.
Oh
I'll
yeah.
tell I'll tell you a quick one. I'm talking to Grady Hendrix about witchcraft for wayward girls, and we're getting into a great conversation. And I'm like, so Grady, I really felt like, no, this is what you were trying to say, and you can immediately tell Grady's the nicest person in the world, and
He's
he
great.
didn't want to say that's not even remotely close. He's like, I I see how you could see it like that, and I was like, "Oh, no." Immediately you're like, "That wasn't it at all." But, hey, look, that's
Well,
a fun of a conversation.
you can take those moments as an opportunity as well. So I kind of had that when I was talking to Philip Fracassi about Boys in the Valley. And I introduced one of the main kind of mechanics of the story as being demonic possession. And his response was, I really don't see it as demonic possession. And so automatically I'm like, well, I got that wrong. But um, my pivot was to say, like, in my mind, I was thinking demonic possession because that's the thing that people will understand. But in my mind, I was like, okay, well, if it's not demonic possession, I said, is it because it's a situation that has to do with control? Like when you're possessed by something, you lose control, but these kids still had a choice. And so I
Yeah.
pivoted and I took that moment of like, well, I said the wrong thing and I turned it into that's the point of this discussion. And so that you can find those like little pivots too, where it's helpful to be like, okay, I get it, and let's move along with this. Is this why? So yeah.
Alright, I get it. You're pointing out that you're better thinking on your feet. I get it, Rob, okay?
I've been doing this
I
14 years. I better be.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That is definitely fair. Alright, look, this is a loaded question, and I'll preface it by saying, I know you love all your children. I know you do. But I have to ask, is there any one episode that you've done since 2023 that's just like, "Oh, boy, this is one of my favorites."
I mean, yeah, that is the loaded question.
It's
I think
loaded. It
that
is.
the one that's easiest to go to for me is not it's the time I was at Josh Malerman's house.
You
Um,
were there for days, my friend.
yeah, I spent a weekend there. We recorded like 5 hours of stuff, and so that is probably the literal closest I've been to that thing you were talking about, where it's like we're all sitting around having a conversation.
Yeah.
Um, but me and Josh, I've known Josh since 2014, right after Bird Box came out. So we've had this thing over the years where we've kind of like grown together. And so our rapport is really hard to have in a way that like if you met someone for the first time. So I would say that easily that's um, kind of I think the best example of the way that I podcast would be that one. Yeah.
I highly recommend everybody, please, you have to listen to these episodes on the ARC Party with Josh Mallerman because you're right, Rob. It's, because you have that relationship and that friendship and you're in a different environment.
Yep.
I mean, and look, I'll stop beating a dead horse. You know how much I love the podcast, but those episodes were something special because of that. You
Yeah.
know, it, it kind of took, it's funny, it took you out of your comfort zone and put you into a different comfort zone. And I
Yeah.
got a different Rob experience, which I absolutely loved.
Yeah. 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 It was. I think it was a turning point for me of being more vulnerable about stuff and being more putting more of me in it as opposed to just trying to pull them out. Yeah, a little bit less guarded, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. That's so funny that you say that because I don't. That's the furthest thing on my mind when I listen to the art party is that you're guarded, but you bring up. It's interesting though because you're thoughtful. I wouldn't say guarded. You're very
Okay.
thoughtful with your questions and your queries. Which I again, I try and steal from, and I appreciate. This is what this is my next question. Okay, so the Josh Mallerman episodes, that's sufficient enough, and I know that was a very loaded question and probably unfair to ask, but I ask
Mhm.
everyone, so it was your turn in the barrel.
No, I'll take it. And I did my best to not give you multiple answers because I know that everybody's like, "Well, it's these 3," and I wanted to, like, honor the question by giving you a single answer. Yeah.
Yeah, hey, look, you go wherever the hell you want. All right, this is your time.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that you haven't gotten on the ARC party? And I know there's got to be a laundry list, but who would be one of your stellar guests that you haven't had on?
Like a bucket list guest?
Yeah, could
That's
be
tricky
anyone.
because, um that's tricky because in my time when I was wrapping up my previous podcast, I was like, "What's my bucket list?" Because this is coming to an end, and
Mhm.
I kind of filled it. I kind of got almost everybody that I really wanted to. And I've had opportunities to interview authors where I'm like, I don't know if I would be showing up in a way that would be enough for them. So, like Chuck Palahniuk, I've had the opportunity to interview multiple times, and I've kind of shied away from it because I've read Chuck, but like I'm not the kind of fan where I would show up and give Chuck a good experience. So I'm like, other people can interview Chuck and have a great time. Um, so like it's kind of difficult, but um, weirdly, something it's kind of outside of literature a little bit. There's a person recently that I've been just dying to talk to, and it's Patton Oswalt.
Uh,
Um,
Rob, you need to honestly send that email tonight. Pat,
yeah,
I can't imagine a world where Patton Oswald wouldn't want to talk to you.
yeah.
You've got to make
I
that
don't know if
happen.
you've seen though, but like he's really gassing up like horror folk like crazy, like talking about Keith Rawson and Nat Cassidy and Tananarive Due, who I know he's acquaintances with Tananarive Due, and that's Tananarive. So there's people that I'm like afraid to talk to as well. So like Tananarive, I'm very intimidated by because she is just on a different level. Megan Abbott, I would love to talk to, but like again, intimidated by Katrina Ward. I'm very intimidated by, but she is a stellar author. So like, yeah, there are those names where I'm like, I need to work up the courage. Sylvia Moreno Garcia, I would love to talk to, but like,
Oh,
still
same.
working up the courage to make those requests. Yeah,
It's funny what you said about Tyler Reeve because Neil McRobert was nice enough to say, "Hey, look, man, if you want, I'll set up the intro," and I haven't taken him up on it because I'm intimidated. I really am. You know?
well, I will tell you, do it while you can. Like, ask, um, just ask. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got my
Yeah.
David Duchovny. That was a cool one. Back in the day, I interviewed him, and it was just because I was like, "Hey, David, if you want to come on, email us," and he did. So like, you'd be surprised what you can do. And then here's what I'll say from having done other kind of work with Reeve, just the nicest person in the world, the most giving, the most like generous person. So like I guarantee you, were that to be set up for you, it would be a fantastic conversation. She is
All right.
incredible.
All right. Look, nobody likes a coward, so I'll have to bite the bullet. And I know I would love it, and I know it
Yeah,
would just be a bucket list moment for me. So yeah, sometimes I have to get over being a big chicken, but I will. I will.
you just gotta do it because like um, if it doesn't time out right now, then you can just ask again later. You know, I actually one time in my previous podcast reached out to Jack Ketchum and was like, "Hey, we're doing this type of podcast. Are you interested?" And he's like, "No, that's just not my kind of thing." And so he turned it down. What I should have done is said, "Do you want to just come on for a regular interview?" And I didn't do that. And now that's never going to happen. So,
We'll never say never, but yeah, I feel your pain. I had a similar moment with Mick Garris where, and it was just timing. He had just ended his podcast, and he's like, you know what, dude, and he couldn't have been nicer. He couldn't have been nicer, but
yeah,
it's not the right time. I'm burnt out. I got to step away, and then you just feel like you lost the ability. Where I know that if I were to reach out tonight, he'd probably be like, yeah, that was
yeah,
like a year and a half ago. Let's rock and roll. But
totally. hmm I
you
agree.
bring up an interesting point is that we're talking about horror authors, but you you've really created a reputation for yourself that you can reach out to a Patton Oswalt. You could actually reach out to really anyone in the horror community, directors, actors, screenwriters. Have you thought about that, or are you just nope? This is my lane, and I'm going to stick to it.
A little bit. There's a few people who I would be really, really interested in doing conversations with. So Um, Patton would be one of them. Um, Not only because of the love of horror, contemporary horror that he's showing online, but also because um, I'm a big fan of the TV show Justified, and he was Constable Bob. So you know,
Elmore Leonard, come on,
yeah,
Rob, of
comes back
course.
around Elmore Leonard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I have this secret kind of hope that one day I can make this work. Stephen Graham Jones is a big fan of the TV show Justified too, and doing podcasting with him about Justified, I think would be one of the most like awesome experiences I could have. And then if I could loop Patton into that, that would just make it even better. So the
Look, you
other, the
just put
other,
it into the ether. This is going to happen now.
this better fucking happen now. And then I don't know, yeah, I don't know if profanity is okay, but you can bleep.
Oh, fucking sure.
Okay. The other one would be I would die to talk to Brian Fuller because I've always been a huge Hannibal fan. And then anything else I've seen Brian Fuller create has just been so like I want to know the brain that creates these things because everything is considered and the storytelling is so detailed and the visuals are so detailed. And even the trailer for Dust Bunny that's coming out soon looks so amazing.
Yeah.
And he was on Tanana Reeves' live stream, the Scare Up the Vote. Um, and
By the way, thank
like,
you for your work with that. It
yeah,
didn't work in our favor, but I truly appreciate what you did.
yeah, that was well, and that got me the opportunity to, in a chat, say, "Hi, Stephen King. Hi, Joe Hill." So that's the closest I've gotten
Right?
to those guys, but they said hi. So, um, but Brian Fuller, I think, is just one of like, I really connect with what he's doing. And so, like, if there was branching out into film and television, Fuller would be one of my first choices. I think I really gel with what Mike Flanagan's doing too.
Same.
So that would be an interesting conversation, but I feel like I don't know his stuff as well. But like, I could talk to anybody about Hannibal for like days on end without rest. So yeah, Brian Fuller would be a huge thing for me.
Where's the Rob Olson Hannibal start to finish recap then? I'm
That
giving you multiple podcasts, by the way. You already have Justified, and now I'm giving you Hannibal. But
yeah, you're just giving me work. Like that's easy for you because like you can just walk away and be like, someday
I don't have
Rob
to
will do
do it.
that. That's work for me. So
This
I
is what
see,
I
I
do,
see,
Rob.
I see through you.
I hopefully I'm gonna put a gigantic smile on your face, which you probably knew this already. My colleagues at Macabre Daily, they were at Brooklyn Horror Film Festival, and they saw Dust Bunny, and
Yeah,
just 10 out of 10, no notes.
It's got to be fantastic. It's got to be like, yeah,
Just all of the like all of the magical whimsy from Pushing Daisies,
yep.
you know, cross section that with, the intensity that you had in some episodes of Hannibal, and then
Mhm.
just then wrap that in the Brian Fuller of it all.
Yeah,
And, yeah, so I cannot wait for this film. There need to be more Brian Fullers out there, but you know
yeah,
what? Let me not be greedy. We're lucky to have the one we have.
yeah. I'll take what I got right now. Yeah.
Okay, where do you see the podcast going to? I've already branched you out into like 11 other podcasts, but seriously, where do you see the ARC party going? Because I want to see longevity here, Rob. I deeply attached to this podcast.
Mhm. Um, Ooh, yeah. I'm gonna have to think about that for a moment. I think that I really like what I have going on, and recently I did a couple of episodes where I was talking to publishers, small publishers. So I talked to Alan from Shortwave Publishing,
Oh, nice.
and a lot of really good responses for that. Like people really like the idea of hearing from the people who make the books as opposed to the people who write them. And so I also just posted an episode where I talked to Mitch from Rapture Publishing, and Chris Panettiere was on. That was really cool too. And so I was just talking to my girlfriend last night about what else I could do in that arena. And I had always been fascinated with talking to movie agents or movie manager people, movie rights people, or publicists of bigger publishers and stuff to just kind of examine the different areas, like the different parts of the apparatus of publishing. So outside of talking to authors, which is always going to be the main focus, I am starting to think about um, what are the other pieces on this puzzle, and how can we explore those as as part of the overall kind of conversation. So those things are something that I'm interested in. Obviously, doing my twice a year um, horror preview episodes with Becky Spratford and Emily Hughes, because those are just great. Like we've recommended 145 books in just 2 years, and so people can always look at those and get good recommendations. Talking to people like Brian or other people in film and TV, I think would be cool, for sure. And then I'm thinking about also revisiting older stuff a little
Okay.
bit. So I don't know if anybody is aware. I'm a big fan of the Raw Shark texts by Stephen Hall, which is like these 11 books that are on the shelf behind me.
You have brought it up, to my knowledge, at least a half dozen times
Yeah,
in previous ARC Party episodes, and I love it when every time I hear it, I
yeah,
love that you're shouting it out.
yeah. So that uh, I've already interviewed Stephen Hall for his other book, Maxwell's Demon. But I was recently thinking about talking to him again because since the last time I talked to him, I've gone through cancer and I'm in remission for like 3.5 years. But that is a book about grief, and
By
reading
the
it
way,
through.
thank
Well,
goodness.
thank you. But reading it through the lens of someone who has gone through a major trauma and seeing what the difference is for me, how I take that story differently, and talking to him about that, I think would be something that I want to do. So, like going back and looking at earlier kind of foundational books, talking to Mark Danielewski about something from the past as well would be cool. But like diving into some of those really kind of early influential texts, I think would be cool too.
Fantastic. Look, I know I've given you so much work already, but everything that you're saying is exactly what I want to hear. I hope you take this as the compliment it's meant to be. I see you transitioning into that film world effortlessly and having those conversations with directors, with actors, with writers. I I just want to see you, not that you have to. I'm loving the art party,
Right.
but you've got the skill set which I think could transition so easily into incredible conversations in that arena. And I'm greedy. Rob, I'm greedy. I want to hear you talking to these people. All right. You're
I,
good at
I
what you do.
I understand. I have that same greed for other people's work. Yeah. Yeah. for sure.
I'll bug you now that I have your contact information. I'll just bug you
Yeah.
about it from time to time. If I don't see you doing it, I'm going to be like, "What the fuck, Rob? Come on!"
Um, I have sent out feelers about talking to patents, so I'm not
Okay.
just talk. I am trying to make things work, make things
All
happen.
right.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I also see. Yeah, I don't know where you look. You probably already know, and you probably have already done it. But you should also reach out to Brian Fuller. you know,
I'm working on that too a little bit.
Okay. All right, then I'll shut my dumb mouth. I don't want to give away. I don't want to give away your surprises in the future. Look, man,
One day,
this has
yeah.
been this has been fantastic for me because I'm not joking. You're a blueprint on what I try and emulate and follow. I don't do it nearly as well as you,
Oh, come
but
on.
I'm good at stealing, and I steal shamelessly from you. keep
Y-
keep doing what you're doing, man. It's just it really is. It's a service that not a lot of people. I was going to say not a lot of people appreciate. I think they do. Should say it's a service that I don't think a lot of people recognize.
They
That
don't
you
talk about
give,
it. Yeah.
yeah, that you give this
Yeah.
avenue because one of the most magical things, and I have look, I'm going to get corny as hell here, but one of the most magical things and special things, and you know this full well, is it when you open someone up to a piece of literature that they haven't experienced. I'm a movie person. I love movies.
Mhm.
Ever since I was a kid, it's my passion. But there's nothing that can duplicate that, overused word tonight, but that magic of losing yourself in a work of fiction, nonfiction, whatever the case may be, poetry, essays, whatever, the written word. And it just stimulates the brain and
Mhm.
it just expands the heart in a way that I've never been able to duplicate with another medium. So, you, sir, are making that easier for people to do. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. So, thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And on that point, I would just say that um, if you ask a million authors, they're going to tell you that the best way to get the word out about them is word of mouth. And so, like, we're just word of mouthing to hopefully more than one person at a time. But also,
Yeah.
that, like, I can't think of a book that isn't one of my favorite books that wasn't recommended by someone else. Like, it's very rare that like our best books in our lives are or movies or whatever you just found on your own. Like a lot of the time someone said you have to experience this because of how amazing it is. And I think that's really important. And so I know that you've joked a couple of times about stealing from me, stealing from me. We are kind of like soldiers, you know? And the more there are of us, the bigger the voice, the bigger the sound, and I'm mixing metaphors, whatever. But like if I do something that inspires you to talk about things because you're like, oh, I like what that's doing, I like the effect of that, and now I want to do that, or like you were already doing that, but you steal ideas or whatever, like we are now, we're colleagues, we're working together. We have the common goal of, I love this person's work. Everybody needs to hear about this work. Um, and then you have the satisfaction of seeing that change as well. So
Yeah.
when that little novella, The Extra, by Annie Neugebauer. I'm going to say her name wrong. Neugebauer came out from Shortwave Publishing recently, and I read it and I was like, "This is fantastic. This is like one of the best things I've read recently." I did an interview with her, and I was very excited to talk to her about it. And then to see Shortwave talking about how successful that book is, then you're like, "This thing I care about is getting the recognition it deserves." So like, yeah, like being a part of that movement to promote things, um, it, like, pays off. It feels good. Yeah.
I agree. It feels like a grassroots movement at the moment because I feel like the voices amplifying the authors are fairly new. We've been doing it for a couple of years, but these authors have been doing it for a couple of decades, most of the time. So I feel like we're coming into it and we're like the mouse that roared. Some mice are bigger than others, which is fantastic. But I do feel like it's a grassroots movement. So I appreciate you saying that. And that is the reason why I want to have Robb Olson on, and I want to write an article, and I want more people to listen to you, and I want this thing to grow.
Yeah.
We're going to spread like mushrooms, you know? And all those tiny little mushrooms are going to say, read this,
Yeah.
and it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. And then more people will read it. And then that's how that creates the potential. That's like why, like, the people believing in things on a small scale grow the scale. And then when the scale is bigger, more people notice it, and that grows the scale. And it just builds and builds. Like in 2018, Stephen Graham Jones he was known in the community, but he wasn't on Barack Obama's summer reading list.
Right?
And a very quick 7 years later, everybody knows who that dude is. And it's because the people who loved him just kept talking about him and believing in him and giving him opportunities. And that's what it needs to be.
Stephen Graham Jones and Jonathan Jans are, I say this all the time, the cup runneth over. You can't be that talented and that handsome. So screw
Oh,
those two
and tall.
guys.
And
And
tall.
tall.
I'm 6'2", and I'm so angry because Josh Mellerman's taller than me, Paul Tremblay's taller than me, Stephen Graham Jones is taller than me, Jonathan Jans is taller than me. I'm pretty sure that Todd Kiesling is taller than me. Where is
Oh,
this height coming from?
he is. Todd Kiesling hugged me and I came up to his belly button because fucking Rob, I'm 5'8" on a good day. All right? Hurtful
Well,
words coming from you.
I know, like, oh, poor Rob, he's only 6'2". Yeah, I
Only
know.
6'2". I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on. Don't you dare. I'm going to end the episode, but don't you dare go anywhere because I want to talk to you about one thing.
Yeah, of
Robb
course.
Olson, the Arc Party. Everybody, if you're not listening to this podcast, you're not invited to my karate themed birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese. All right.
Well, I really appreciate all of the wonderful words you've said about me. It makes me feel great.
Well, this is where I put you on the spot before I let you go. Will you
Yeah.
come back?
Anytime. Anytime. Tomorrow, I'm here. Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to regret that. All right. Thank you so much. Again, everybody, it's the Arc Party. You already know that. But anywhere you listen to your podcast, the Arc Party, just, go start from the beginning and just work your way up. And it's just stellar. So, again, thank you for the hard work you're doing.
John, thank you so much.
You got it. I'll talk to you soon.